Hey there, lovelies. Welcome to another Holy Shedlet, second in Lent. Well, third, I suppose, if you include Ash Wednesday, which why not? So last time I was talking about a poem by Mary Oliver called The Journey. And today, just for a bit of variety, I thought that we would look at another poem called The Journey. But this one is by a guy called David Whyte. I love the poetry of David Whyte. He's a rich and rare blend, really, with an Irish mother and a father from Yorkshire. And I reckon that, his poem combines these two elements, the magic and the enchantment of the Emerald Isle, with the gritty earthiness that comes from God's own county, as Yorkshire people like to say. He's also lived for 40 years or so, I think, in the United States, up in the Northeast. So that's a big chunk of his life as well, and that's another kind of part of the blend that comes through in his poetry. And I do suspect that this poem was influenced by Mary Oliver's. I know he's a big fan of Mary Oliver, but David Whyte says that he actually wrote this poem for a friend who had gone through a really painful divorce. It was written to affirm and encourage her in the midst of, the aftermath of that separation. So like Mary Oliver's poem, this too is about leaving and losing, but also going forward, setting sail to find a new adventure. So let's read it, and I'll put the words on the screen so you can follow them. Above the mountains, the geese turn into the light again, painting their black silhouettes on an open sky. That's a lovely image, isn't it? Above the mountains, the geese turn into the light again, painting their black silhouettes on an open sky. Sometimes everything has to be inscribed across the heavens so you can find the one line already written inside you. Sometimes it takes a great sky to find that first bright and indescribable wedge of freedom in your own heart. Sometimes, with the bones of the black sticks left when the fire has gone out, someone has written something new in the ashes of your life. You are not leaving. Even as the light fades quickly now, you are arriving. As I say, David Whyte wrote this for a friend going through a painful divorce. But like all poetry, it's got a universality to it. The poem speaks to all of us, speaks to anyone standing in that kind of liminal space or that threshold area, grieving the loss of something. A dream, a job, a deceased loved one, a failed project, a treasured home, a relationship, whatever. Wondering as they stand there what the future now holds. Maybe excited, because sometimes that's part of it, but also nervous and anxious about what lies ahead. And like Mary Oliver's poem, the nub of this one is the absolute need for us to find our own voice, our own oftentimes deeply buried truth. Sometimes, it says, sometimes, everything has to be inscribed across the heavens so you can find the one line already written within you. And this is often the problem, I think, that our truth, our inner voice, may not be speaking very clearly or very explicitly. It may be just a line, as the poem says, a sense, a feeling, a hunch somewhere down in the depths of us that we can't quite get a handle on, but we also can't ignore forever. Sometimes it takes a great sky to find that first bright and indescribable wedge of freedom in your own heart. The instinct to act, the wedge or slither of courage that stirs up within you and says, go for it, why not? But it's also a poem of resurrection. Sometimes, it says, with the bones of the black sticks left when the fire has gone out, someone has written something new in the ashes of your life. And all too often we miss that. We're so preoccupied with those dreadful black ashes, the burned out sticks, the deadness of it all, the loss of it all, that we fail to recognize, to discern the promise sketched there in charcoal. You're not leaving. You are not leaving. That's not a good way to look at it. You're not leaving. Even as the light fades quickly now, you're arriving. That's a whole different mentality when you're in a tricky, painful, challenging situation. You're not leaving. You're arriving. Even as the light fades quickly now, everything feels dark and hopeless, not a glimmer anywhere. But it's all going to change. You're not leaving, you're arriving. It's heading up to, 3 years now, getting on 4 anyway, since I left St Luke's, the parish in North London that I served and loved dearly for around 19 years. Actually, the story is longer than that, because Pat and I had chosen to join St Luke's 4 or 5 years before I became the vicar. It was, still is really, our family. I often said that it was the best job in the world, for me anyway, and, I would actually gladly have done it for nothing, though I avoided telling the bishop that. I believed that even though I was approaching retirement age, my tenure could be extended. That was what I was banking on, really, because, that's often what happens. And when I was told that this discretionary option was not going to be on the table, I was completely devastated. Talk about ashes. I was just gazing at the hearth with all those ashes and blackened sticks. I felt that I was at the peak of my powers. I'm just getting the hang of it, I used to say. St Luke's represented the most fruitful part of my life, of my ministry to that point. And as I say, it wasn't a job. This was our family. I loved serving the wider parish there, the people who never come to church, but who the Church of England gives you wonderful opportunities to connect with and to be involved with, often in really painful times, but sometimes in happy times as well. And I just completely thrived. It was a thriving time of my life. I even managed to write 6 books on the side during that time. Don't know how. I had, and I still have, absolutely no intention of retiring. That's not a word or a concept or an idea that enters my head. It's not part of my mentality. It's not part of my vocabulary. I've said to so many people over the last 2 or 3 years, please do not use the R word. I knew, that even when St Luke's came to an end, there would be work for me to do. But at the time, that made absolutely no difference to me at all. It was that work. It was that job that was what I wanted, that was so important to me. And no matter what was written in the sky or inscribed in the heavens, and it probably was there clear for me to see, all that I could see, all that caught my attention was the ash and the sticks. And for months afterwards, I would be bereaved, confused, anger on the edge of rage. I'd be driving along the motorway or something in my car with Pat, and suddenly out of the silence I would say, who took my life from me? And that was how it felt to me, like someone had just grabbed the inside of me and taken it away. So I think you can understand, friends, that I know about empty hearths, and not just that one either. I understand disappointment and the anger that often goes with that. Bereavement, I get it. I've known it. I've experienced it. But I also believe deeply and passionately that someone has always written something new in the ashes. Though it's taken me at times quite a while to see that. It takes us sometimes a year or 2 or more. Maybe less if you're better than I am at seeing the stuff inscribed in the heavens or finding that wedge of freedom from what we've lost in our hearts. You see, look, we've all been gazing at ashes, haven't we, and dead sticks for a year now. The pandemic basically put our fires out, didn't it? Left us with cinders of what was. This has been a year of bereavement, literally, for some dear folk. But even for those of us lucky enough to have escaped the immediate impact and agony of COVID, there has been loss. And I suspect that something in there about all of this will reflect in mental health problems in many people for some time to come. Because, somebody took our life from us this last year. But whatever our loss, whatever your loss, whatever brand or variety of painful disappointment you are feeling or going through, I believe there's hope in this poem, and that's why I've brought it today. An incentive to keep on living fully through difficult, painful, testing times. I love the opening imagery to the poem. You know, above the mountains, the geese turn into the light again. Above the mountains, the geese turn into the light again, painting their black silhouettes on an open sky. Perhaps the message is that we all always do have the wings to take flight from painful, dark circumstances, if we're willing to open our wings, if we're willing to trust our capacity to not get rid of, but to transcend the darkness and the intimidation of those great mountains around us, the mountains of despair. They may be high, they may be intimidating, but there is an open sky inviting you to paint your flying silhouettes all across it. I mean, there's no masking the pain that comes, with a divorce, like David Whyte's friend, or the agony of disappointment, or the grief of any sort of loss. I mean, I still think the Church of England was stupid for letting me go. But I'll leave you with this, guys. You're not leaving. That isn't what this difficult situation is about. You're not leaving. You're not leaving. Even as the light fades quickly now, you are arriving. Wherever we are, however alien the landscape may feel, it's always home inside. And you just need to come back there. Come home again. See you soon.